Alright, hello again. This is game one of Mystical Teachings versus what turns out to be Mono Blue Fairy Aggro. Not really a deck I'm too experienced playing against. I'm more used to playing against the more controlling versions with Spire monitors and the like. Now, I mean, not to say that this is a bad deck, it's certainly capable of some very, very explosive starts, with permission backup as well. Things like Spell Stutter, Sprite, Ninja the D-Powers, cards that are used in the more controlling version, but instead of the late game Spire monitors, it trades them for Zephyr, Sprite, Latchkey Fairies, things to kind of keep the early beats going. So against an unknown opponent, we've kept a hand of Muldrifter lands, removal spell plus counter spell, and have drawn into a brainstorm. Now, you're never really not going to keep that hand. Certainly not against an unknown opponent. It's got a little bit of everything. You've got your card advantage, you've got your removal spells, you've got your reactive spells. So, fine hand. We've drawn into a brainstorm, so we're now really just looking for some sort of shuffle effect to actually get a little bit of value out of it. It's like, because our opponent doesn't, like most of certainly this draw, he's not putting us under any sort of early pressure, but we're not really under any sort of clock to actually get some value out brainstorm. We're not digging for anything specifically, I should say. So we just want to maximize the number of cards that we see with it. So we'll happily just make all our land drops, and we'll try, because at this point I think we're on some sort of a control mirror. So we're drawing more removal spells. The plan as present is to essentially next turn is to evoke a Muldrifter with a counter spell backup, draw a bunch of cards, and see what we can get. Opponent cycles a miscalculation and just passes the turn back to us. So yeah, no reason not to evoke the Muldrifter now. Draw into Grim Harvest, which is a fine card. Part of our late game engine. We don't really want to see it now, and Mystical Teachings obviously means that we can grab it pretty much when we want. So the brainstorms here mean that we can put it back, and because we're not really under any pressure, we're just waiting to find the fetch lands now. So our Muldrifter enters, we draw two cards, both of them helpfully are fetch lands. We will be discarding a removal spell at the end of turn, probably the Doomblade. We don't see him playing a particularly large number of creatures, so having the spot removal is fine, but the incidental burn of the verdict is what we're looking for. Right, so end of turn, our opponent flashes in a Spell Stutter Sprite, equips it, so we're going to get domed for 3. Post combat, he casts his Latchkey Fairy, with the prowl cost, obviously. We're going to counter this because we don't want him to draw any extra cards if we can possibly help it. But obviously he has the Force Spike, so the fairy will resolve and he'll see his extra card. It's fine to trade the counter spell for the Force Spike. It's a card out of his hand. We're going to have to deal with it at some point anyway. It's annoying that we've been quote unquote got by it, and it never feels good to get caught out by a Force Spike, but needs must. So while he's tapped so low on mana, I've decided to pull the trigger on the brainstorm now, see if we can find some more removal spells. We have the verdict. He sacrifices interestingly. I was expecting him to sacrifice the Latchkey Fairy, just to get a little bit of extra value out of Spell Stutter Sprite if he has a Ninja of the D-Powers, but obviously he doesn't go for that. He casts another Bone Splitter, so the Latchkey Fairy is now swinging in as a 7-powered attacker. Certainly not small by any stretch of the imagination, but with a Doomblade and a Geth's Verdict in hand, but we're not too concerned. We'll take one hit and then we'll deal with it. The fact that he plays so many flash creatures makes it well. I mean, he plays a number of flash creatures. I'm expecting like Sentinels of Glenalendra, things like that as well. The fact that he plays a number of them means that we have to be relatively careful. So he plays Jutaxian Probe. I had the option of brainstorming and hiding some of the cards, but I chose not to take it. There's really no reason to not to not let him know that we have counters plus removal, especially when we know that the top cards of our deck are rubbish anyway. I'd rather kind of slow him down for a few turns and make him play around our counters and removal than protect it. But it's certainly something that you should be considering against black decks. If they duress you, Brainstorm obviously will protect your best card and you can just redraw it. Also, because we had the other Brainstorm, we want to get as much value out of that as possible. So, end of his turn, we Brainstorm, put the 2 of the lands that we've drawn back, and essentially exchange our Brainstorm for a Prohibit. Which is fine, especially when he's only got 2 cards in hand. So we're going to pull the trigger on the Muldrifter now. And actually look to start closing this game out. He's got the Force Spike, but we're obviously going to pay. We've got the second island. The only thing that would worry me would be if he had Force Spike plus Misdirection, which obviously he hasn't. So we're quite happy just paying for that. I don't know if he was trying to maybe bait a counter out my hand if he thinks I'm terrible or whatever, but we'll happily just pay. So he's now down to 2 cards in hand. We have a reasonably full grip with relevant spells. He knows about Counterspell plus Doomblade, so he needs to keep that in mind. Drops a Cloud of Faeries. Which is, with the double Bone Splitter is a 5/1. So, he's at the stage now, every single card that he drops, every single creature is a reasonable threat in and of itself. But, he's got to, he knows about the Doomblade, and we've drawn so many extra cards since then. He has to assume that we have ways to deal with the majority of his threats now. So we draw Teaching, so that's our late game now taken care of. We've now got our engine going. His Cloud of Faeries meets the Doomblade, and we can start swinging for 2 a turn now. So end of his turn, he flashes in a Pestermite. We don't really want to get hit for 6. Because it's the last card in his hand, I have no problems counterspelling. The reason I chose to use the counterspell over the Prohibit there, Prohibit's a slightly narrower spell, but I obviously wanted to start Teachings on this turn, but he's managed to draw a Ninja of the D-Powers, which he's going to hard cast. So we're going to Prohibit. Not the end of the world, but we're trying to use as much of our mana each turn as possible, just to try and be as efficient as we possibly can. Like, we don't want to give our opponent any extra turns to kind of draw something that might lead to us losing the game. So Muldrifter starts poking away at his life total. We've drawn the Condescend. It is not as good in the late game, but because he's playing off the top and we've got more lands than him, might be able to lever some sort of value out of it, other than as a bad preordain / tap your opponent out. Condescend's really good for if you're trying to resolve a big late game spell, if you're trying to protect a Muldrifter, actually make sure that gets through. But we've got our Teachings, so we'll Teachings for another Teachings. There's no reason to to go and grab anything specifically now. We just want to get a bunch of Teachings chained together. So we'll cast the Teachings that we've tutored for, and we'll go and get Grim Harvest to start rebuying our Muldrifters, or the Muldrifter that we cast early on in the game, and hopefully close this out a bit quicker. We've obviously drawn Muldrifter naturally, so we've now got, between our hand and graveyard, we've got access to 3 of them, so it doesn't really look like this game's going to go particularly a lot longer. So we'll just cast the Muldrifter now. But the one card that he has in his hand transpires to be a counterspell. We don't really care at this point. Counterspell is fine, but we're not interested in countering it. The Grim Harvest being there basically just means that's bought him a turn, because we're going to Grim Harvest back a Muldrifter at the end of his turn anyway, so we'll just draw the cards then, and he doesn't have a counterspell. Would probably have been better had he counterspelled the Grim Harvest when I try and got that back, meaning that I would need to find another creature or teachings for Spire Monitor and find a way to kill it. But so he has a Zephyr Sprite, but obviously we've got the Grim Harvest. We know he has nothing in hand, so we have no problem just Grim Harvesting for Muldrifter. So resolves now, unmolested. We knew it was going to resolve now. We'll draw a bunch of extra cards. And now we're in such a commanding position, it's really, really difficult to see a series of plays our opponent can make that leads to us losing this game. I think our opponent would need to draw Snap into Snap with us having 0 disruption, and obviously attacking both turns with Muldrifter. And the fact that we're just going to recast Muldrifter, you have to assume that we're going to draw into some gas. Plus we have Brainstorm plus Fetchland and need to find no removal for his Zephyr Sprite. So, the chance is there that our opponent could feasibly win the game, but obviously in this case he doesn't draw the Snap. Okay, so relatively indicative of how the game plays out. Thanks for watching.